Hello. Hopefully, there's a whole bunch of people out there that can hear me. Welcome to our webinar. We've obviously for the last few minutes we've been waiting, and I must say it's lovely to see a whole heap of names appearing on the side of my screen, so we can see the number of people that are joining. So that's fantastic. So it's always nice when you organise these things and you set them up, that it's actually nice that people come along and join us. So welcome to our webinar. I hope everything's okay. I hope you can hear me. I hope you've all had a good day at school today and that everything's gone smoothly, or as smoothly as it can do. So over the course of the next sort of 45-50 minutes or so, this webinar is going to be focusing on water saving and sustainability and what that means for schools. I'm Tim Sewell. I work for Water Plus, and I'm joined this afternoon by Rebecca from Braunston Community Primary School and by Becky from the sustainability platform Zellar. So the way things are going to work during the course of the webinar is I'm going to focus on the water side of things. Becky is going to share her knowledge and expertise on the wider sustainability piece, and Rebecca is going to bring the whole thing to life with some experiences from their primary school, which will obviously be directly relevant to all of you. We've set aside some time for questions at the end, so if you think of things as we're going along, what we'd encourage you to do is just sort of click into the chat function, type in your questions there, and then we can review those and go through those questions at the end. So before I sort of get going, or as I get going, I guess the first question, I suppose, is, why would a water retail company like us be interested in talking to you about sustainability? Which is a perfectly valid question, I guess. I guess firstly, it's something that's just fundamentally, it's just really important to us and something we really believe in. And I know that goes for Becky and Rebecca to do. It goes for them too. At Water Plus, we've got our own targets to achieve net zero for scopes 1, 2 and emissions. We're aiming to do that by the end of 2025. And obviously, as we're involved in the water industry, water is something that we're particularly passionate about, and we love getting people to think more about water. So to sort of set the scene a little bit, when we think about sustainability and going net zero, generally we find that we tend to think about how we can cut back on our use of fossil fuels, or how do we use less energy, or how do we waste less, how do we recycle more. And that all makes perfect sense. We all, I don't need to tell you, we all need to do those things, and we all need to focus on them. Water, though, tends to be a little bit of a forgotten utility, particularly when it comes to sustainability and going net zero. I think it's probably fair to say that water is often a bit of back of mind utility in general. I think for most of us, it's just one of those resources that we just kind of expect to use and kind of pay for in the background. We don't really give it much thought. We turn on the tap and expect clean water to come out, and when we go to the loo, we flush it and expect the water to go away, and that's kind of it. We don't give it a lot more thought, really. So, but there is more to it than that, and the chart you can see, this little diagram you can see on the screen now, just goes a little way, I think, to try and explain that. So what you find is when you do turn on that tap to get yourself a glass of water or fill the kettle, when you turn on the tap, the water that you're using, the water that's coming out of the tap, that started off in a reservoir. And then it's been pumped through to gone through a whole network of pipes to go to a cleaning station and a processing plant where it's been cleaned and filtered and cleaned again and filtered again. And then once it's gone through that process, it's pumped again, and it's pumped all the way through to your tap. And all the time it's going through that journey, every little step along that way, it's using energy. And of course, if you're then using the hot tap, obviously that water's been heated, so it's using even more energy. So the whole process is constantly using energy. So whilst it's probably fair to say that, on the whole sustainability piece, water might be sort of a smaller part of it, you absolutely fundamentally, if you're trying to go net zero, you're never going to get there unless you're looking at water as well. And when it comes to water, it's not just energy we need to think about. water in itself is actually a scarce resource. So, believe it or not, we actually get a lot less rain in the UK than most people think we do. I know that, and actually, I'm quite glad today. I'm pointing out my window. I'm quite glad today it's actually a dry day, because sometimes when you make that comment and it's been raining all day, particularly this time of year, people are, it rains all the time. But we get a lot less rain than actually people think, and it is a scarce resource. And with water, with those sort of projected growth in population, and if we carry on using water in the way that we do today, somewhere between 2030 and 2050, we'll need around about an extra 3.5 million litres of water a day to meet demand. So fundamentally, if we don't do something now to save water, it's going to be a problem, because I can guarantee you we won't be getting that 3.5 million litres of water a day we need. That's not going to be coming from the sky. Particularly with climate change, we're going to be getting less rain, not more. So it's really, really important that everybody starts to think about saving water. So obviously there's lots of ways we can save water, and I'm going to come back to those a little bit in a minute. But to sort of dive straight into what, sustainability at schools, I'm going to hand you over to Rebecca. So she can tell us about her experiences. Rebecca, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. So my name's Rebecca McKeeser, and I'm assistant head at Braunston Community Primary School in Leicester. So I just thought I would give you a little bit of background to our school, and I think it's really important to understand about our school, because as schools, and you're all in different schools as well, we do face some significant challenges, and we face some really big challenges due to our intake of children. However, those challenges are positive challenges. So we love a challenge here at Braunston, and our journey started very much with understanding the community that we serve. So many of our children come from significantly disadvantaged families. So we currently have 440 children on roll, and that's nursery to year 6, so we're a 2-form entry school. We've got 67% of our children are pupil premium. But what that also means is we've also got the 33% of children that are just above that line of where they can be in receipt of pupil premium funding. So there's a lot of children that parents do work, yet they're in low income jobs, and they're not qualifying for additional support. So with that, we are an early help. We are the first help where parents come to us for support. We've got 18 EHCPs across our school. Last academic year, we lost 11. So in year 6 last year, we had 11 EHCPs in one year group. Our EAL percentage is actually fairly low for a Leicester school, considering we're a Leicester City school and the diversity of Leicester. However, those are official EAL children, but what we really have to consider that actually the majority of our children are EAL. Our white British children are EAL. They come from backgrounds where language, talking, reading, singing is not a priority. A lot of our parents struggle with English, even though English is their first language. So we treat all children that they are EAL, because if our teaching strategies are good for EAL learners, they're going to be good for our white British children, that actually are they actually underperform compared to our EAL children. So just to put it into some context about, our levels of deprivation. So out of 32,844 small areas, where number 1 is the most deprived area, where our school serves in our catchment area, we are 887 out of that 32,000. So we are in a significantly deprived area. That's the children, that's the families that they come from. Our school isn't deprived. We are so fortunate with the resources within school, and that has definitely supported our sustainability journey. Our school isn't deprived, but the children are, and because of that, our kids have to have the best. And if they have less than the best, we're not able to compare with schools in more affluent areas. So that sounds all quite doom and gloom, really. However, our school is amazing. And I know I'm biased. I've been here 11 years, but we won School of the Year. And children and families want to come to our school now. We're quite well known within Leicester, and we're at that point where we're becoming a school of choice rather than a local area. And we have so many staff members that bring their children here. So out of area, they come here. So I always think, when you go on holiday and you want that really good, authentic cuisine, and if you ask the locals and you find out where the locals go, you're getting a good deal because that's really popular with the locals. So we're like that as a school. Our staff, it's such a great accolade. Our staff want to bring their kids here, which is just amazing. So yes, there is all that doom and gloom with the high percentages and low percentages, and our kids come in and none of the kids pass the baseline in EYFS, and in fact they're actually lower than the baseline. So baseline 0, and our kids come in and they're like negative. So they've got a whole journey to get to 0. However, that hasn't stopped us. And we need to support our families to help them to make sure that they're not feeling fuel poverty, that they're not feeling like they have that there is no way out. So our values are so important to us, and to our journey in sustainability as well. They underpin everything. So we're known as BCPS. So our values are belong, care, persevere and succeed. So the BCPS acronym, and they are just underpinned and thread through everything that we do. So we talk about children belonging to our school and belonging to good things, because our children are so vulnerable that they want to be part of gangs and they want to be part of like organizations, things that they really shouldn't be involved with, county lines, things like that. So we promote the children belonging, so it doesn't matter where you come from, what language you speak, what you look like, what you believe in, you belong here. And for us, we link this straight back to Maslow's. So that is really important, and that relates to the parents as well. They know they belong here and they know they can come for us for support, not just support for academic achievements, but support in their home as well. And this leads us quite nicely on to the things that we've supported our parents with sustainability as well. So our next value is care. Now this is so important to us, and it leads us to that bigger picture. So our children do come from the most deprived families. However, they are the most giving. They are the most giving. There are people, our families have nothing, yet they give. And they give everything. They give their whole hearts and everything. So we talk about care as one of our values. We talk about caring about our school, caring about Leicester, caring about our country, and caring about our world, which is where it links really nicely to sustainability. So what I wanted to do was just share a few things that we're doing in school. So we've only just started our journey with Zellar, like literally within sort of past 3 or 4 weeks. However, we've been doing a lot of other things in school. So small things making those big changes for us. So if I just share some of the projects, I'm hoping it might inspire you or just give you some idea about where you might want to start. And then obviously, where could that take you? So really just some ideas about things that we've done in school. So this all links back to our community and it links back to our values, which is why I wanted to share that with you. So we're really fortunate we've got an allotment area in school, and not only of that, we worked with the university, De Montfort University, and they provided us with a polytunnel. So the idea is with that children plant seeds, children grow fruit, children grow vegetables. Then we show parents how to cook through videos and what to do with that. And then we give back. So it gives back to the community. So our kids come from the lowest, but we need to instill that value of them, that they can give back and they can make a difference, because this is how they're going to get out of the situations that what they're in. And they need to know that actually there's something better out there, but they've got to work hard for it. So this is our team. We had a really great support with some volunteers called the Good Gym, and they came and helped us, and they dug out our allotment, and they helped us create our polytunnel. We've got compost bins now as well. So So here are just some pictures and bits and pieces. So I've just talked you through them about recycle and reuse. So the things that we've done, and this is all prior to Zellar. So you know, in schools, the significant amount of whiteboard pens, glue sticks that are used constantly. They're just our everyday tools, but actually they're so important and so important to our work that what do we do with them when they're finished? So we teamed up with Ryman, and as you can see, these are two of our pupils. So we collected all of our pens and our glue sticks, and then they are recycled with Ryman. So that was just one thing. But actually, if you think about how many children we've got in school, say 400, if each child has got one pen per year, which is, an absolute underestimate, think about how many pens over the year that they're using. So we started with this. This is our picture of our head teacher, Mr. T. Some of you might know him from Twitter. I think he's up to about 22,000 followers now. He's always outside litter picking, part of the community as well. Linking back to our value about giving back and that care. So like I said, our kids come from the poorest of backgrounds, poverty, like lower than the poverty line. Yet look at our harvest festival, and then we give that back to the community. So nothing goes to waste. So we're looking at food waste and making sure that, we're clearing our cupboards, making sure that actually, someone can benefit that as well. We've got our recycling of crisps as well, so that the metal and the products within them, they get recycled. And then one of our massive successes has been a program called Rags to Riches. So this is about the recycling. So we ask parents for donations, staff members for donations, so clothing items. And what happens is we collect them all in, and then the person from Rags to Riches turns up and they actually give us money as a school for the amount of clothes that we are sending in. So they are then recycled, and they're sent to other countries to support with that recycling aspect. And it's brilliant. You don't get a lot of money from it. It's really not a money spinner. But what it does is it enables us to buy the seeds, to buy the planting equipment, so that we can plant that, grow the products, and then give back again to the community. And the kids absolutely love going out there to the allotment and exploring that, and just have a look at that significant donations. Like I said, we are really in the most deprived area, but look, our parents give, and they give back because they know it's really important to us. And then one of the other things, we are a Microsoft Showcase school. So we have got an amazing accolade for our use of technology with children. And this has really supported us with going paperless. Now, we're not 100% paperless. We've still got work to do. But we've made massive steps in supporting that. And our consumption of paper has significantly reduced. The amount of printing is significantly reduced because of this. So our digital strategy was to make sure that every child has a laptop, and they do. Every child from year 2 up to year 6 has a laptop, and every child in year 1 and in foundation stage also have a tablet. Now, what this means is that children are able to access those online manipulatives, like you can see in the middle picture here. So we're not buying in fantastic plastic products, place value counters, Dean's, base 10 and things like that. Yes, we do have that supply, but we're not replacing it because we're using digital resources to support us. We think really carefully about taking the children to places as well. So we have a full class set of VR headsets so we can explore and take them. So we're thinking about our carbon footprint and moving around Leicester, moving around the country. If we can show them through VR, then it provides an amazing experience. Our kids don't leave our local area, so their knowledge of even Leicester itself is really, really poor. So we can take them through the use of VR as well. Other things that we've got around the school. So traditionally, you'll probably know this, primary schools, secondary schools, there are lots of displays up, loads of paper. I know lots of schools have gone Hessian backing and things like that. Well, we've removed all of the paper displays. And as you can see in this display here, we now have digital displays, and these are all around the school. So each year group has a digital display. Class teachers take a picture of work or a message, and it gets put up on there. So the whole school can see it, and and they're on a continual cycle. We use OneNote to record things, so whole class feedback as well, and that's that picture there with the yellow background. Instead of working walls in the classroom where you're constantly replacing paper and pens and using that energy, we use digital working walls, so our children are able to go back and look at the learning that they've done. If they've missed a lesson, they can go back, but also it's that support of sustainability. And here's another example as well to share with you. Another example of our displays. So this is a digital display, but we also created curriculum maps, and these are shared all around the school. So these are static displays. They don't move. They're always there. It supports children to reactivate prior knowledge and also look at what they're going to be learning about in that next year group. All of our lights are on sensors as well. Which is, really effective. So we're looking at energy consumption that way. I have put a couple of links in there. I hope that the slides will be shared out later. But communication to our parents and carers has just been so key. The amount of forms that you have to send out, permission slips and things like that. So we use Sway to support that and reduce that consumption and reduce that paper as well. Our crafts, so we're always thinking about what we can do to support parents. So this is just a clip from our Twitter feed, and this is a parent and carer and child after school club. So they come along together, and it's based on well-being and encouragement, and it's called the Smiles Club. And so we're looking at sustainability ways that we can look at being creative. So that was just one of the examples. How am I doing for time, Tim? Am I okay?
Yeah, you're all fine. Keep going.
Brilliant.
Great
Thank
stuff.
you. Sorry. So another thing that has really helped us with going paperless is using Padlet for subject leaders. So traditionally, subject leaders across the school would have a folder, and every time you do a bit of monitoring or pupil voice or pupil feedback, that would be then printed. Or every time you updated your action plan, that would then have to be reprinted. So to support that, to support workload, to support the reduction of paper, we moved to Padlet. So all subject leaders have a Padlet and everything is uploaded electronically, and then you can share that with colleagues. So everyone's got access to your Padlet. And these have been really, really effective. You can see and develop your own headings, which has just been excellent, and our staff take real ownership of them and real pride within them, which is great. Something that one of our teachers started, he's an oleo collector, so making sure that we're really supporting that there is no food waste. He advertises, he goes and collects the things, and he'll advertise it within our Snapchats and our group sessions and our WhatsApp groups with staff, so people can sign up and collect things. So just another simple way of supporting there. Our children have been part of a student leadership award where they grew their vegetables, and they went to Nottingham Trent University, and then they had a market stall which was great. And the mayor and the lady mayoress joined us, and they were selling the produce that they bought and grew from at Leicester Market, which was just fantastic. So entrepreneurial skills, you name it, social skills, interaction skills, it was just fab. And that was all from our polytunnel as well. So I'm nearly there, just a couple of bits more. So we also assign roles and responsibilities for our children, and I'm sure most of you have already thought about these, but things that we've done are recycling monitors and litter pickers at lunchtime. I'll give our kids a litter picker and they are well away. Our field is spotless and our playground is spotless, and that's because kids care, and that is our value of care, and it's care through everything, which is why I wanted to share our values, because it all links back to that. We've got light switch monitors and tap monitors. If there's a dripping tap anywhere in the school or a leaking toilet, the kids go to Alfie, our premises officer, and they tell him. So they have that responsibility, which is just great, because it can't just always be the adults. It's got to come from the kids. They're the majority. So we need them to have that buy-in as well. And here's just some feedback from our school council as well about what was working well and even better if, which is great. So they're very, very conscious about their local area as well, which is, it just goes back to those values. And then this leads us quite nicely into going back to Tim about reducing our energy consumption. So you've obviously realised, and through the presentation, I've talked a lot about electronics and our digital strategies within the school. But what do we do then to support that? Because obviously we've got a high energy consumption then. So we have solar panels, which are just phenomenal, and they actually support 30% of the running of our school. So we're using them to help fund our digital strategy, which is just amazing. And I found this little clip. So our premises officer told me that actually a good consumption is about 29% of renewable energy. Well, we're at 30%, which is just great. We've had lots of workshops to help the children think about, like I said, the fuel poverty and how they can support at home, because money is tight, and money is really, really important. There are times, many times, too many times, where parents are having to choose: do I feed the kids, do I heat the house, or do we have electricity? What do I do? So anything that we can do in school to support our families and sharing that knowledge is only going to benefit parents as well. So we've had the NEA, which is a charity that came in, and they spoke to our year 5 children about what sort of things, hazards and things they can do at home. We've had Solar for Schools in, we've had Severn Trent in. And then one of the other things as well is bikeability. And you think, how does that link to sustainability? Well, if our kids can ride bikes, and if we can get that enjoyment and that love for that outdoors and being motivated and being physical and active, then surely that's going to reduce the amount of times that they're driving into school and things like that. We've also got LED lights all the way through the school, which also reduce our energy consumption. And then things that we've done as a trust. So like I said, we're a trust school. There are 15 schools in our trust, and it is just steadily growing. So one of the main things that our CEO at a conference 2 years ago, conference of the whole trust, he said, if any school is using glitter and I come in and there is glitter, there is going to be serious consequences. So he actually came round to every single school and collected every pot of glitter. So throughout all the DSAT schools, there is no glitter. Because it's plastic and it's just going into the ocean. So yeah, glitter is no longer. Email retention policy. So we have obviously a significant amount of employees that like to hoard things, and not just hoarding things in their classroom, but hoarding things in terms of data, which then means that we need greater data storage, and then that costs further money as well. So we have an email retention policy throughout the trust, so that emails are retained for 3 years. When they deleted my emails, I thought I'd lost my right arm. However, there was about 50,000 in there, and I don't know what was in that content. So at least they've gone anyway. So now I've got a nice 10,000. And if that's just me, what about everybody else? What about teachers, SLT, the office? Think about that. So that's had a really big impact. No laminating. Now, I know primary school teachers love a laminated bit of paper, but think about the turtles. So no laminating. We don't have a laminator, and it's just working. It saves time, it saves the plastic, it saves the heating and the electricity costs, and obviously the cost of the laminating pouches itself. And then So we've been doing all these things, and what we want to do and what we've started our journey now is working with Zellar to formalise these things and looking at bigger projects within the school of bigger things that we can look at. So we're going to be working with Tim and Water Plus and looking at a water audit as well to see where our energy consumption, our water consumption is. And we're just looking at, what more can we do? Because there is always more. And that's okay. We're up for a challenge, and we can do whatever we can to support. We're not a barrier school. We say yes to everything. Yeah, so we're really excited to start that journey with Zella and Water Plus as well. But we've been doing a lot of things in the meantime and before we joined, but I think now we're on to those finalising it and drawing it together and moving on to those next steps. So with that in mind, thank you for listening, and hopefully I've inspired you or given you some other ideas about some of the things that you might want to consider doing in your school. So I'm going to hand over now, as long as I can do this properly, because if I don't do it properly, I'll end up cutting off all the slides.
No,
actually, I don't need to do anything. No. Thanks, Tim, for that prompt.
Don't worry.
Thank you, everyone.
Wow. How amazing was that? That's a bit of a hard act to follow, isn't it? There's just so much fantastic stuff there. So thank you, Rebecca, for that. I particularly love the tap monitors. That's very cool. And VR headsets in school. Clearly, I went to school. You can tell from my hair. I went to school a very long time ago when we were still using like chalk on a blackboard. So VR headsets, that's just fantastic. But there really wasn't. There's just some fantastic stuff there, and just seeing some of those photos, and obviously the enthusiasm and the passion behind it all is just lovely. So when it comes to water, what can be done? So there's some very sort of obvious stuff that you know like things like that you might do at home. For example, if you're using a kettle, just fill the kettle with the amount of water you need and heat the amount you need for a couple of cups of tea, not fill it full and leave half of it unused. When at home, last time I bought a kettle, I bought a glass one, so that my family could actually see how much water was in the kettle and how much they were boiling. And it was amazing how they, when they could actually visually see it, they were like, oh, we don't need to boil all that. We only need this much. So, things like that. If you want cold water, fill a jug, put it in the fridge and let it get cold and use the jug of cold water rather than running the tap for as long as it takes for the cold water to come through, because all the time that you're running that tap, it's just going down the drain. Don't leave the tap running when you don't need to. Like the classic one at home for that is people cleaning their teeth. They put well, you could argue you don't even need to use water when you clean teeth, but that's a different subject. But they turn the tap on, they put the toothbrush under the tap, they put the toothpaste on, and then they sit and clean their teeth for 2 minutes, and they leave the tap running the whole time, and then they wash it off again. So the taps run for 2 minutes for probably 5 seconds of actually being used. So there's obviously very simple, quick things you can do. But if you reach out to your water retailer and water retailers like us or and the water companies, there's an awful lot more you can do that can make a big difference. And the first element of that is really kind of understanding where you are now with your water use. So, about understanding how you're using it and where you're using it. And Rebecca kindly teed up water audits for me, and she was talking. So, water audits is the best way to do that. So, it's like in a lot of areas of business and at schools, you audit all sorts of things. So, water's no different. So, it's about companies like us coming in and really getting under the skin of how you're using water. So when we do that, we look at sort of your physical fixtures and fittings. So we look at the taps and the toilets. We'll talk to the school or the organisation to really understand how you're using water, where it's being used in the school. What they might be doing in the canteen. There's a whole raft of areas you're using water. So really getting to grips with how it's actually being used as part of your sort of everyday school life. back in the sort of, on the desk, we can sort of do a deep dive into the account. So we can look at where the wholesalers are applying charges. We can, make sure that those charges are appropriate for the size of site you've got. And then obviously we can do benchmarking. We've got lots of customers, hundreds of thousands of customers, many schools. We've got many customers that have buildings that are a similar size and shape to yours. So we've got lots of data from other companies, so we can benchmark to see whether are you using a lot of water, or kind of on average, or where you sit with your water use. One of the great things that we find with the water audit process is that it highlights where you might have leaks. And leaking water is actually a whole lot more common than you would think. And what we generally find, the most common causes of leaks and where water is being wasted is actually in sort of taps and toilets and other water fixtures and fittings. So if you take a standard toilet, you often find that there's water sort of slowly sort of trickling and seeping down the back of the pan, and it's almost unnoticeable. And we can have things called what we call leaky loose strips, and you could put them in and it shows it up. But that water is just constantly trickling down the back, and you can't really see it very well. But the whole of the time it's going down, it's just being wasted, and ultimately you're paying for it. Taps is another one. Obviously it's far more obvious if a tap is dripping, but we quite often find that taps is one of those things where people are like, oh, I know the tap's dripping, but I've got so many other things to do, and so we'll just leave it for another day because it can't be that big a deal. What you actually find is that sort of kind of like actually dripping taps and toilets can actually cost somewhere around about £300 a year of wasted water. In fact, a while ago, a year or so ago, we did a project. We worked with the Ministry of Education and United Utilities, and we went into 23 schools in the Manchester area, and we did water audits, and we found leaks in every one of the schools. And of those leaks, there was 141 leaking toilets in 23 schools. There were 20 leaking taps, and there was 32% of the urinals that were in those schools were completely uncontrolled. So they were wasting about you can see the number there, 9,655 litres per day per school. That's a lot of water. That's water that it's gone through the meter, so you're paying for it, and it's just gone to waste. So keeping an eye on finding those leaks is really, really important. The other area where we can't often find, the other problem with leaks as well, is you can find what we would call like a hidden leak. So sometimes we'll find that you get leaks that are undetected. They're in pipes that are underground, and this particularly if it's an older school building with older pipe work. So you can get a hidden leak that's it might be a tiny little crack in a pipe, and it's slowly seeping water, and it goes unnoticed because it just sort of disappears into the ground. But again, it's gone through the meter, so it's chargeable water, and you're paying for it. One of the ways that we can sometimes spot those is if a bill isn't in line. So with that benchmarking, if a bill's not in line with where we would expect it to be for a site of that size, or if a meter is recording constant flow of water, they're little signs that there's a leak. And then we have clever technology where we can find and fix, and we can come in and find the culprit and get those leaks sorted out. So you do your audit, you really get under the skin of how and where and understanding water use. And then the next stage on from that is then setting out, where do you want to be? What is it you're trying to achieve? What's your goal? And then obviously being realistic about that, understanding what challenges you have and what budgetary impacts we might have on those goals. So we sort of sit and work with you to understand that and get a clear picture. And then from that, we can then go on to that sort of third stage of working with you to how do we get you to where you want to be? And off the back of the audit, understanding where you want to be, we can then sit and work with you to create, how do we get you there? So that could be, there's all sorts of ways to do that. So typically it will be, at its simplest, I guess, that's like installing, much more water efficient sort of fixtures and fittings. So it could be things like tap aerators, which are little devices that sit into existing taps. The water pressure remains the same, but they use about 50% less water. Could be things like air gap toilet flushes. So in a typical toilet flush, you flush the toilet, and if you've ever looked inside your toilet system, when you flush, the water pours out, and all the time the water pours out, the fresh water's pouring in at the top. But obviously some of that fresh water is already then going back straight back out again because the flush hasn't finished. So an air gap flush stops that process and basically doesn't start to fill until all the water's gone. So you're not wasting any. And it might be things like sensor taps, infrared sensor taps. There's all sorts of fixtures and fittings that can be installed that actually help to save water. We might then suggest and look at things like rainwater harvesting. So that can be something as simple as a water butt. So if you've got a school garden, you should be collecting your rainwater and using that to water the plants. It can be more advanced things with water recycling. There's a whole host. There's too many to get into here, but there's a whole host of ways that we can help save water depending on your goals and where you're at. And then we can work on sort of helping with communications. How do you get the message across to staff and pupils? We can do things like posters and there are all sorts of little sort of communication tips and tools to get everybody thinking about water as an important resource to save. So there's lots of options. There's lots of ways that we can help, and it obviously depends on what you're trying to achieve, what your appetite and your resources. And then once you've started and you're going on the process, there's obviously very important to keep an eye and monitor, how well you're doing. Quite simply, the best way to do that is to take meter readings. Much like you do gas and electricity, people just for whatever reason don't think about taking water meter readings. Take a water meter reading, and if you can do that regularly, you can obviously keep a track of how well you're doing and where you're saving water. And if you send those water meters in, those readings into your retailer, they'll use that to make sure you billed accurately for the water you've used, and then they have to rely less on estimates, so it's better for budgeting too. Now obviously it'd be great if we could have smart meters and that did that for you, but the way that the water market works is that the water meter is actually owned by the wholesaler. So that's the company that supplies your fresh water and takes away the waste, so like United Utilities and Severn Trent. Now they are starting to roll out smart meters, but it is early days, so it's likely to be a while before that becomes sort of, they're universally available for everybody, but it is starting to happen. We do have other technology. We have a thing called automatic meter readers, where we put a pulse unit onto the pipe by the water meter, and it sort of sends a pulse into the pipe, and it can record the water going through the meter, and that can give sort of instantaneous data for the water flow, which is great if you need really, really detailed monitoring, but there's obviously a price that comes with that. So all these things, there's lots of options. Really just sort of depends on where you want to go. So I guess there are lots of options, but ultimately, does all that make a difference? Well, obviously we think it does. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that we dropped into 23 schools very, very recently. We did water audits at 4 schools. And we had some fantastic results across those 4 schools. Between them, they're going to be saving about 1.5 million litres of water from the work that we did with them. So that's equivalent to, just to put it in perspective, that's equivalent of 6.3 million cups of tea. So if you imagine, without that work, it would have been like making those cups of tea and literally going straight out and throwing them on the grass and just wasting them. That will save between them around about £4,000 that they would have otherwise spent. So I'm sure there's much, much better ways in schools to spend £4,000 than water that you don't need to be spending on. And in one of those schools in particular, the audit work we did is going to be saving them about 40% of their daily use. So that's a huge amount of water that they can save that was otherwise being wasted. So it's that, and that's great. That's great for sustainability, and it's that's really great for school budgets as well, which I know are always really, really tight. So yeah, hopefully you agree, it's definitely something that's worth looking at, something that perhaps you might not have thought of before, but certainly definitely worth looking at. So that's probably enough about water. So I will hand over to Becky, as we'll now share her experiences and Zellar's experiences of that kind of wider sustainability piece. So Becky.
Real. Thank you so much, Tim. Again, two hard acts to follow. But my name's Becky, and I'm from Zellar, and we're looking at supporting schools as much as we can in, how are you going to start tracking your sustainability, and what sort of action plans can you put in place? Just a quick note, I know Tim mentioned at the beginning around if you have any questions as we're going through or any thoughts, please do drop them in the chat. Even if we don't necessarily cover them today, we'll look at following up with you all. So please do post any thoughts or anything you want to share, any questions in the chat. Just a little reminder from me on that. So Zellar, what do? We look at accelerating sustainability at scale. So essentially what that means is we want to have a sustainability platform that can empower users to rapidly build, track, start understanding what does sustainability mean, and how can you start planning this for, planning for future actions to be taken within your school. So we do this at an individual site level, but also at trust levels or at various different community levels. So whether that's global brands, franchises, councils, MATs, sort of looking at how can we ladder this all up, but then still looking at how is this then operated on a site level. So we provide a standardized digital measurement and change program, which can connect large networks with the site level action and impact. And then in terms of looking at that impact, so what we can support schools in doing, we've worked with sort of about 90 schools so far, and we've seen that in terms of average cost saving, with getting started on sustainability and using Zellar to do so, you can sort of be achieving cost savings of around £5,000. And a lot of this does come from getting that initial stage of monitoring and understanding where you're at. As Tim said, and as Rebecca mentioned as well, that initial starting point of understanding what does this look like for our school is the most crucial step, and we'll go through that in more detail shortly. But just to reiterate, that's the first stage to undertake. And then looking at energy savings, so what do those costs equate to? And so we've supported schools in saving over the work that we've done with schools, 750,000 kilowatt hours of energy, and we've supported them in saving. So there's a lot to be had. A lot of that is through behavioural change, and some of it will be through green tech implementation, where that's possible. But as Rebecca mentioned earlier, and as Tim has said, the first stage is seeing what can you do that is no cost action that you can start doing from literally today. And so it's pinpointing those quick wins. And then what does that look like in terms of carbon reductions? 3.2 tonnes of CO2 reduced per school in the first year. So sort of supporting them in that metrics tracking, but also looking at what are the things that they can do to reduce that as much as possible. And then I'll let the feedback speak for itself. But just to pull out one that we've mentioned earlier, because obviously Rebecca is from part of the school that's part of the Discovery Trust. So again, just working with them at that trust-wide level and on an individual school basis to be able to make sure that that bridges gaps between any initiatives that are run at a trust level are also being filtered down to the schools. I know Discovery Trust are particularly good at that, and we're just looking to support that as much as we can. And then in terms of the overview, brilliant, the video has already started playing, so hopefully I will be able to catch up with this. But this just gives you an insight into the platform and what we can look at doing. So as you can see along the top, you've got sort of a navigation panel, but essentially we will help you get that automated emissions measurement as much as we can. So the first thing we'll look at is energy and that energy usage. So that's very much the first stage. And then we'll work through things like travel, water, waste, etc. We can support you in those different stages. And then looking at this overview, this is starting to take you through it, but very much delving into, once you've got that baseline measurement, what sort of actions and behavioural change can we start helping you, supporting you in implementing, and then what is that effect on impact measurement? You know, how can you measure this year on year, you know, term on term going forwards? We've also got a scoring and reporting structure for that, which I'll go into in more detail on the next slide. But additionally, sort of offering guided projects and then support in implementing those changes. So it's not, here's all the information, go off and do it. We'll very much help you along that journey, and the platform is there to be almost, you know, a sustainability coach in that respect, sort of showing you what's next and what can we, you know, what's our next challenge, and then additionally, what are other schools doing as well. And there's always perfect timing, always help and support available from me and the team if there are any specific questions that you need. So you can book onto demos, use our chat bot, have a look at our FAQs. It's all there. And then in terms of how this actually works, so what we've done is we've split the actions out into missions, rituals, and projects. So missions very much focus on, you know, energy, travel, water, waste, target setting. And you can see here, this is the example with our energy mission. And so we can walk through, we can automate this, so we can pull through your meter information. You can select the number of years that you're looking at viewing this for, and then we'll be able to provide a breakdown of, you know, monthly electricity data, for example, and then what that looks like year on year. So you will be able to get an understanding of how you're currently trending, or what you're currently doing very quickly. So this sort of walks you through what that looks like. And then, as I said, as you've got that baseline, or once you've achieved that, you can then start to bring in those behavioural changes. So, you know, the actions you can see here, we've got a list of suggested things that you can start doing as quick wins. But the brilliant thing about doing this within the schools community is we can really start to build that up. So, you know, we can start to add more things to that rituals list, or you as a school team can start to work with the students or work with the facilities team of what are the things that we're doing on a regular basis that we can start tracking, or what are some new ideas that we can bring into play. So it's really, and Rebecca, you mentioned it before, yeah, how can we connect the different groups within the schools together? So having tap monitors that then go speak to the facilities manager, that's exactly what we want to facilitate and include. And all of these rituals can then be shared in the classrooms, or you know, on emails to parents, again, to support with that idea of this is what we're doing in the school, can you implement any of this at home? And then next we've got projects, so those sort of bigger ticket items around, you know, solar panels or LED lights, or setting up a sustainability group if you haven't already done that, being able to offer support around what that might look like, what the steps entail, and being able to connect you to what's out there. So our main aim is to make sure that, you know, no school has to start from zero. So if you haven't done any of this before, that's absolutely not a problem, although I doubt it. You know, we saw from Rebecca's example, even though they're starting their sustainability journey, actually they've already taken so much action already. So it's about being able to document that, and sort of prove that to the wider schools community, and be able to say, we had a great experience with doing the Rags to Riches programme, we really recommend it. And so it's highlighting those things and being able to share this among the schools community. And then just a little bit more in terms of tracking and reporting. So you've seen, or you might have seen this already, we have the emissions tracking page. So being able to understand, you know, what do our emissions look like by area or by scope, or over, you know, a number of years, and what does that breakdown look like? Being able to bring that to life and show, you know, your staff or show your pupils, this is what it looks like. This is why we need to spend so much time focusing on energy, for example, because it makes up a big chunk of our emissions. That's the sort of starting point. And then in terms of reflecting that and being able to compare that, schools are the most competitive organisations I've ever met. So the Zellar score is something that really resonates with a lot of schools. So being able to compare, how are you doing against other schools? How are you doing against yourself? And so breaking that down into the different areas of action, giving, and ultimately reduction, that provides a nice competitive element. And then lastly, we have reporting functionality within the platform. So as you all, I'm sure, are aware, the DfE have regulations, are implementing measures, and that all schools will have a climate action plan in place by 2025. And so what the platform will allow you to do is collate all of that information and access plans, and reports that you can then also share with governors, trustees, parents, everyone else within the community, to really showcase what you're doing. And to find out more, there is a QR code on the slide. Hopefully you can all see that. So feel free to book onto a demo or sign up for a 7-day free trial. I'll can take the demos, or you can ping us over any questions that you might have prior to that. And particularly if you're a multi-academy trust and looking at rolling this out to your schools, please do get in contact with us for more details on that, and we can discuss what that programme looks like. And now I'm going to pass back over to Tim. I'm not going to stop sharing because, as we said earlier, that will break everything. So Tim will finish up with the last couple of slides.
Yeah. Thanks, Becky. I hope everyone found that interesting. A lot of food for thought there in everything you've heard in the last hour. But we do recognise it's not easy, and Rebecca obviously highlighted some of the challenges. So, and those challenges aren't just always, more than just resource and budget. But every step you take, however big or small, it makes a positive difference. Even if it's something like, having the tap monitors, which I do think is fantastic. So I expect everybody to have tap monitors tomorrow onwards. So, even small steps can make a big difference. And it's definitely worth reaching out to your water retailer, an organizer, and like Zellar, to take advantage of their knowledge and experience. And that's why we work with Zellar, because we share that same passion, and we really want to make a difference. And we do things like with customers that take our contract with us, we offer a discount, and we've done other things with Zellar, like we supported a green schools competition, and because there's nothing we like more than seeing sustainability in action, because and seeing everybody get involved, that puts a big smile on our face. So yeah, have a good think about it, reach out, talk to your water retailer, talk to Zellar. There's a whole heap of stuff you can do. So that brings us to the end. We've got 3 minutes, so we're obviously being too passionate and talk for too long, so sorry about that. There is one question that's popped up, Becky, which I think is aimed at you. So someone has asked about the cost for Zellar.
Yeah, absolutely. So the standard pricing for schools is £200 per school. At a trust level, we'd look at having more of a discussion around that, because obviously if reporting requirements are needed at a trust level, then that's a slightly separate conversation. So please do reach out if that is the case. But for your individual school, at £200, unless you have a Water Plus contract, and then we've got a discount code for that. So please do reach out. And just while I'm looking at the chat, Tim, I've seen there's another one from Patterdale, a rural school of 25 pupils. You're absolutely not too small for Zellar. Our specialty is small, medium-sized businesses, so we'll love to work with you and support you on getting started on that. Fab.
I think that awesome, great.
Awesome,
it's awesome. That's lovely feedback. Thank you. So I think that about wraps us up, and we've got 2 minutes, unless there's any other questions. 2 minutes, not a lot of time to give back, is it really?
We did have another, well, we had another couple of questions before the webinar, and so I can just share one of those that came through specifically for you, Tim. So how often should schools be auditing their water systems to ensure they're not wasting water?
So typically would say, obviously, if you've never done it, you have to start off with sort of relative, like you have to go into it in quite a lot of detail thereafter, and then it's about if you're really good with your ongoing monitoring, you probably only need to sort of touch base once a year, and you can get to a point where you can be doing that yourself. So on our website, we have like a form that you can download, like with a tick list of things to look at. And then it's like a lot of things, I guess, it's just about making it a habit where you're constantly checking on your taps and your toilets, and you've got your tap monitors. So if you really, it should become like an ongoing thing, and then maybe like kind of once a year or once every 18 months, you're doing a bit of a, okay, we're actually going to go through the tick list.
And then there's just one that's come into the chat for, is there a cost for Water Plus to initially audit sites?
That again varies on a case-by-case basis, so it depends on what the contractual situation is. Sometimes some of the water wholesalers, the Severn Trent, United Utilities, whatever region you're in, the water wholesalers have also got obligations to help save water. So we've done quite a lot of audits where customers have come to us and said, we want to do this, and we've been like, okay, well, we can go and talk, we can go and have a chat with United Utilities as an example, and we can do it off the back of United Utilities. So there's no one size fits all answer, which it's really about reaching out to us, having the conversation and working out how we can make that, either cost neutral or most cost effective for you.
Absolutely. And I think another one has just popped in. Okay, that was a thank you.
Thank you.
I guess on that, just one last question. In terms of that water switching, what can that look like for schools? Because I'm guessing a lot of schools might already be working with a water retailer, water provider.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess, there's still a lot of there's awareness of the market is still quite low. So in 2017, the water market for non-households changed. So like at home, you have to basically get your water from whoever your wholesaler is. So for me, it's United Utilities. I got no choice but to pay United Utilities. In 2017, it changed for non-households. So all businesses, public sector organisations, schools, charities, non-for-profits. Basically, you now pay a water retailer. So the way it works is the wholesaler sets the charges that you pay. The wholesaler charges the retailer. So we get charged by Severn Trent or United Utilities, and we then pass that cost on at cost. And then there's a retail charge, which is what we charge for basically managing the accounts, for sort of doing billing and meter reads and account management. You can switch retailer, so you are free to. So there's us as Water Plus, and then we've got a whole bunch of competitors. So I'm obviously not going to plug them, but there's a whole bunch of competitors, and you are free to. So like you can with your gas and electricity domestically, and obviously at school, you are free to choose who you contract with to purchase your water. So you can switch. So you can come and talk to us, and we can talk to you about how we can best help you. So does that answer the question on switching?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because it was something that I wasn't aware of personally, in terms of what that switch actually looks like. So it's definitely worth reaching out and just seeing if you can get more value, for example, through Water Plus. And I think so someone's just asked around, is there an average cost for water audits? More, if you could put a figure on it. I don't know if that's possible.
It's not really. I'll come back. I'll come back and we can give an average.
Okay, fab.
But it does really depend, because if you're a, obviously we had a little, one of the questions earlier on, if you're a small rural school with 25 pupils, it's very different than if you're a massive, if you're a massive school with, sort of thousands and thousands of pupils and a sixth form attached to the side of it. That's it's very different, because obviously one job's a whole heap bigger than the other.
Absolutely. So I think it's definitely worth reaching out if there are any specific questions or anything you might want support with. Please do reach out to Tim and the Waterclass team, and likewise with Zellar. But yeah, I think that probably concludes the Q&As. And if there are any more that drop in the meantime, we'll follow up in the next couple of days about that.
So yeah, brilliant. So, well, firstly, Becky and Rebecca, I knew I was going to stumble on that at some point. Thank you both very much. I hope everybody who's on the call, sorry we've kept you 5 minutes over, but I hope you found it useful. And yeah, please, if you want to learn more, as Becky's just said, please do reach out to any of us, and we'd be, we'd love to help, because as I said, I think hopefully you've got from us, we all really, really care about this. It's really important to us, and we're really passionate about making a difference. So there's nothing more that we'd just love to be able to help. So thank you for listening, and reach out if we can help. But thank you, and goodbye, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.